Welcome to ZKast, everybody. I'm Zeus Caravallo from ZK Research. I'm your host for this video. This is another one of my thought leadership series where I interview smart people from different companies to talk about different industry trends. Before I get started, though, I want to thank my media partner, eWeek. The ZKasts are done in conjunction with the eWeek eSpeak series. Today's guest, Chris, you have the honor of being the first two-time ZKast guest. So congratulations on that distinct honor. Maybe I'll make you a little plaque and send it to you or something like that. But Chris MacFarland, for those who don't know him, he's the CEO of Masergy Communications. Why don't you just remind us of who Masergy is and what you do there?
This is good to see you as always, and appreciate the honor. For those of you who are not aware of who Masergy is, we're kind of a pioneer in software-defined networking, and as the world has evolved and changed in networking, we've really focused on, helping enterprises, kind of continue down their path of their cloud journey, no matter where they're at. And we take that perspective from kind of the network security and network services, standpoint. And we very much today view ourselves as a leader in the secure edge networking space.
Yeah, and you guys have been around a long time. I think you just celebrated your 20th anniversary. Congratulations on that. I actually became familiar with Masergy right when you guys were founded as the company that solved video over long distances. So that back then that was a really tough problem to solve. So you guys have evolved nicely since then. I want to start off with kind of an industry question, right? So now that more and more companies are moving to a permanent remote and hybrid work model, what trends are you seeing from your customer base? What problems have been solved or still need to be solved, and where are IT leaders still struggling?
Yeah, no, great question. And I will tell you that, I know there's been a lot of hype around the word hybrid the last handful of years. And what I think we've learned through the pandemic, and, thank God that I think we all kind of see, some light at the end of the tunnel now, is that for most knowledge workers in North America and especially in Western Europe, we're seeing very much this evolution to kind of this hybrid work environment where people are going to spend X amount of days every week, working from home, and at the same time, spending X amount of days in the office, right? So I think the work configuration is going to change there. But one of the things that we've realized and what we've been working on with our customers is how do you provide, the same communications and security components around that end user when they're sitting there at their house versus just sitting, inside of their office. And so that security perimeters change. And then the networking technologies have changed, and clouds, changing the way that applications flow. And so what we've seen is that, there's a lot more reliance on broadband connections, which, has a lot of challenges with it. And so when you take a look at data from, groups like Alman Salon, you'll see that there's this growing reliance on broadband infrastructure, and that, sometimes the application performance there roughly half the time is not sufficient. And that, when you think about saving money, challenges, you can't really get private Ethernet to most people's houses.
No.
And so when you think about these things, it creates some unique challenges. And I think that, we're one of the first companies in the world to introduce some technology that we're excited about that we're just announcing, actually today.
Yeah, that's that trend of the hybrid work is interesting because when I talk to business leaders about it, everybody's got a different idea of what hybrid work looks like. Some companies have people coming in 3 days. Some people companies make it optional, right? But the commonality, though, is that we are going to be in hybrid. That person's home network is becoming more important. And as you mentioned, getting private Ethernet or even T1s and things like that, which wouldn't suffice today, to somebody's home is prohibitively expensive. So, you hinted on this. I know you made a big announcement today, something called Performance Edge. That helps IT organizations solve one of the big problems with broadband today. So why don't you double click on that and drill deep and tell us what Performance Edge is?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're incredibly excited, about this announcement today. We're adding a new technology component to all of our customers that leverage, broadband connections across their managed SD-WAN secure platforms. And we think it's just the natural evolution of what we'll see with SASE. And so when you think about application prioritization and dynamic traffic steering and all these other things that we're able to do in these intelligent networks, the broadband becomes the weakest link. If you think about that being the connection path, back from somebody's house or from somebody's branch office, or maybe even a medium-sized office. So we think that this technology, because we have such deep visibility through our AIOps platform, And we've been watching every connection to the Masergy, secure edge platform for over a decade now. And so what we can see now is that when we see, significant packet loss or jitter moving all over the map, and we see applications not perform right, our AIOps platforms can make a recommendation to an IT administrator and say, hey, we think that this is a candidate for Performance Edge. And for kind of a small incremental fee that's automatic, they can opt into Performance Edge. And what Performance Edge does is it uses, some technology from not only AIOps, but, we're leveraging some of our technology partners to do some, adaptive, forward error correction techniques that allows us to clean up the path. And based upon the challenges that we're seeing from AIOps, we can make decisions about how much remediation needs to take place with that length. And then we change it. What we have seen in our lab and with our early adopters of this technology is the fact that it can perform from a connection standpoint. We can clean up and make it perform almost just like private dedicated Ethernet access. Now, we can't fix the mean time to repair challenges that might exist, with this broadband infrastructure. So it's not a scenario where it's 100% rip and replace of everything that's going on. This isn't a Ethernet killer per se, but for work from home users, branch offices, and probably any offices that leverages probably 100 megabits or less, of connectivity today, this is an area where we can make broadband perform dramatically better. And at the end of the day, they'll get the application performance that they need, but at the same time, it changes their cost structure too. So it's one of these rare instances where this capability and technology that's cloud derived will actually give them more value and cost them less money versus having, higher cost dedicated internet access or even private Ethernet if they had private Ethernet in that location before.
If you've been around the internet for a while, you might just remember your first experience with public broadband. Yes, it was a game changer. Downloads way faster than dial-up or DSL. Always on, all at a great price. It's no surprise a lot of businesses rely on broadband today to power their cloud applications and connect their employees, partners, and customers. Broadband delivers a great experience until it doesn't. Like when you're in the middle of something, it's all going smoothly and then out of nowhere, the connection starts to slow down or freeze. Wouldn't you like to get all the advantages of broadband, including its great price, with the performance your business really needs? Well, now you can. Masergy, the leader in SD-WAN and SASE solutions, is now delivering the superior cloud and broadband performance today's market demands with Masergy Performance Edge. Take your corporate network, add Masergy Performance Edge to any broadband connection via SASE or SD-WAN, then say goodbye to packet loss and congestion and hello to performance comparable to a private connection without paying private line prices, all while taking full advantage of Masergy AI-powered service control and real-time analytics. Why put up with plain old broadband when you don't have to? Get the performance edge you and your business deserve. Masergy Performance Edge. Get started today at masergy.com.
Yeah, well, if you can get close to even Ethernet performance at the cost of consumer broadband, that's fantastic. And I think of all the home workers today, call center workers, even knowledge workers doing a lot of video, any kind of degradation of that network has a big implication on the business, right? So if you can bring a little bit of, performance and quality to that, that could be a big win for companies. So with that being said, though, if I think back to the early days of SD-WAN, that was being painted by a lot of vendors as the panacea to all network woes, right? It was going to solve all our problems, solve world hunger, feed our kids at the end of the night and things like that. And it did serve a pretty big purpose, right? When you had redundant connections into branches and stuff, it really helped with reliability. But what does Performance Edge do that traditional SD-WANs don't?
Yeah, great question. And you're right. When you think about the early, kind of hype cycle around SD-WAN, a lot of it was around, the OEMs and the hardware companies saying MPLS is dead. Well, we know 4 years, 5 years later that it's not. Now, there is a technology transition that's taking place, and I think we're kind of still in the third inning, right? And there's still the more locations to transition to kind of SD-WAN SASE than there are legacy locations that within the MPLS or some other type of technology they had prior to this. What Performance Edge does for people that want to leverage broadband infrastructure is that, they're paying a fee for it. It's a modest fee, call it, roughly, let's say it's $100 a month. And it cleans up that broadband connection when it needs to absolutely take that. And it does it from the Masergy Edge network and in AIOps through its analytics engine, looking at it and making a recommendation for when that needs to occur. And then how do we clean up the packets, itself. Now, this is something that none of our competitors are doing this today, because I think, as we've talked about on your prior podcast, is if you don't have the analytics and don't understand actually what's happening in real time, you can't make these decisions to help customers evolve. So it's something that we think is absolutely revolutionary. And where it's really applicable is the work from home environment that we were talking about earlier, potentially the work from anywhere environment, because we can help them if they're sitting in a hotel or even a Starbucks. And then secondarily, we also believe that branch offices, mid-market companies that may have most of their locations kind of being look similar to branch offices, and then even the retail vertical inside of really large enterprises was where this might have a significant impact to help their performance, but then keep their costs, at a little bit lower level. So what I think this means is that, Masergy, when we look forward from where we're at today, is a heck of a lot more competitive in the marketplace in terms of helping customers kind of continue down that longer term cloud journey.
Yeah, it's now, you mentioned forward error correction, and that technology has been around for a while. It's not all that widely deployed, but it has been around for a bit. Is this is Performance Edge something that a business could build themselves, or is there something unique about the way you have it implemented as being part of your managed service that makes it more consumable?
Yeah, great question. So forward error correction, as you know, has been around for a long time, specifically, in cellular networks, going back to, the advent of moving things from TDM to data traffic. The challenges that we've seen is we've seen a lot of people try to implement forward error correction, mostly hardware vendors, without a tremendous amount of success, because they try to bucketize it and make one version of it fit all. And then it has to be bookended too from a technology standpoint. So you eliminate the ability to see what's taking place across your network infrastructure, and you kind of pigeonhole yourself into the situation to where you may get a little bit of performance enhancement, but the trade-off is you don't know what's going on with your apps, you don't know what's going on with your users, you have to have it on both ends, and it just creates unique challenges. And so what we put together is a platform that's cloud derived. It's an extension of what we're doing with SASE that is taking a look, minute by minute, and then making decisions on whether we even need to have it or not. And so I can tell you, if we have a broadband connection with a customer that is not going to see any value from Performance Edge, we're never going to make the recommendation that they should utilize this technology. And then when we see challenges, and challenges may present themselves at certain times of the day, or may present themselves, certain days of the week, we can make the changes. So this is an adaptive implementation where we're taking a look at all of their apps and how they're performing. And so we've made this tremendously more robust, because we have analytics and then algorithms and then the implementation of the technology behind it. And so, I would tell you this, that if you compare the technologies, this is like, regular cruise control in your car versus autopilot that you get from Tesla.
That's interesting. And, when I think of Masergy, though, I think you're known for your software-defined network. You've done a lot of innovation in the middle mile. You've got some really unique SLAs, and in full disclosure, before I was an analyst, I was actually a corporate buyer of telecom services, and I thought SLAs were a joke, because the ones you get from the traditional telcos really have no teeth to them, but the ones you have actually are pretty meaningful. So now that you've added Performance Edge, it seems like you can deliver this kind of end-to-end, last mile, middle mile type of performance optimization. And so you've alluded to this a little bit before, but who do you really see as the ideal targets for Performance Edge and Masergy services here?
Yeah, great question. So our business, just like many businesses, have been changing. We've been thinking about how do we serve, a broader landscape. If you think about the fact we've been in business for, in excess of 2 decades now, the majority of those 2 decades, we're really focused on large enterprise and maybe medium enterprise, depending how you think about it, right? Think about businesses that are kind of 500 million to 10 billion in revs was really, really our sweet spot. Over the last year, we've pivoted. So we think in addition to that, we think the mid-market is an area where we have service offerings where we absolutely excel. And we've seen, a significant amount of uptake that area. And so we actually think that almost any multi-location business, whether they're headquartered in North America or Western Europe, are really, really good opportunities for us. And then businesses that clearly have remote or partially remote workforces, we can absolutely help in very meaningful and significant ways. And when you think about, what we've been trying to focus on, we really haven't changed our DNA, which has always been about reliability on one end of the spectrum, service level agreements that matter, but more importantly, having transparency to what's really happening with your network and your applications and user performance. And so this is just one more way for us to provide, not only more value, but to give people, more control over what's happening with their applications and their users and enhancing their security posture. So again, we're super, super excited about this announcement. We think it's going to be meaningful and very relevant to, almost all of our customers today. And we're hopeful, over the next handful of years, we'll grow at a pretty healthy clip with this.
Yeah, I think the other area of innovation that you touched on, which I want to bring to the forefront, is what you're doing in AI. I believe you're a very early adopter in AI ops. In fact, I think you were the first service provider to actually come out with an AI ops offering, and you've integrated that into your SASE and SD-WAN products. And as you automate more network functions and drive towards that fully autonomous solution, you talked about Tesla's autopilot. It's kind of that idea. What's the role of Performance Edge here?
So Performance Edge, I think, plays a meaningful role, right? Because it's another function that is making a recommendation whether it turns on and at what level it needs to turn on at, if it does, and the ability to turn off automatically. But if you think about, the company, we are now into year 16 of having significantly invested in analytics for our customers. And what we recognized about a year into that process, so call it 2015, is that most of our customers were just barely scratching the surface of the analytics that we were providing them through our portal. And what we saw was they were really leveraging it when they had, what I would consider to be critical issues going on inside of that enterprise. And so the product and engineering teams here inside of our company started thinking through, well, how do we get our customers to leverage their data so they have more actionable and meaningful insights? And one of the things that we found was the fact that if you looked at some of the biggest challenges that we saw in our network operations centers and our security operations centers were kind of these ongoing things where they deployed a new server somewhere, or they opened a new office, or they had a new application, but they didn't configure everything perfectly for their entire global enterprise. And so we started thinking about what are the things that we could do from an algorithmic standpoint if we were just sitting inside of that enterprise. And so we started off with some base algorithms. And then we thought, well, we can make these algorithms better through some machine learning. We call it AI, but let's just be blunt. These are supervised machine learning algorithms that do get better over time. And we started thinking through, well, we'd love to have a solution someday that's self-optimizing, self-healing, and self-organizing in terms of where does the network need to go? How does it change, evolve? How do apps, that come out of the network, how do we treat them? And so our next phase that we believe that we're at is, sometime late next year, will be to intent-based networking, where our customers can kind of describe what they're wanting, and the network will be able to configure itself that way. And we think we're probably 3 years, maybe 2.5 to 3 years out, where we'll have an autonomous networking. But part of that process is you have to have network administrators, engineers, security engineers, and architects all trust the platform.
Yeah.
Until they see the recommendations flowing through. And today, it's a simple SMS message or a simple text, or a simple, message coming through the portal that says, hey, this is what we recommend. This is what we're seeing. We suggest this change. And then we change it. And then we come back and follow up and say, hey, we actually did see the performance improve, or this is how much less bandwidth you're actually consuming, or this application is now doesn't have any contention. So we're able to demonstrate the challenge, the recommendation, and then follow back up with it absolutely did fix and improve the environment for that customer. And we feel like this is such a huge component because, IT, for all intents and purposes, every business, every industry is getting disrupted in some form or fashion. And so the ability for IT to be that much more strategic is kind of the foundation. It's our job to make this really complex, network security and services, component to the infrastructure look a lot more simple to them.
Yeah, you mentioned the trust that has to be built, and that's interesting too. I think about people that buy Teslas and they have autopilot. They tell me the first time they use it, their hands are stuck to the wheel. They don't trust it at all, and then after about a month, they're falling asleep at the wheel. So, not that you should do that.
No, definitely would recommend all this. I have a 19-mile commute, 17 miles on the highway, 16 and a half of those 17 miles. My Tesla is doing, arguably 99% of the work. So it has come a long ways.
Yeah, and it's great innovation for the network engineer. So anyways, Chris, congratulations on the launch. Like I said, between that and what you announced with AI Ops and some of the SD-WAN and SASE offerings you've had a pretty good year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on ZKast.